there's a saying there's a person walked by a dog and it was growling and they thought, oh, that's such a mean dog. And then they found that the dog actually had its leg in a trap. And that's why he was responding that way. And that kind of,
wow,
it's like it's a metaphor. We don't know why that person, but there's something, you're not going to project outward what isn't inward. And you're not going to find outward what isn't inward.
Hello, welcome back to the F.E.E.L Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Crook. I'm here with a new friend today, thanks to our good friends at Podmatch. I'm always so appreciative of the people that I'm able to connect with through them. Some of my most meaningful connections I have met over the last couple of years through our partnership there. And today is no different. And this woman's going to have she has such an impactful story and such an example of taking those things you've learned and those lessons and those experiences and looking at, all right, this is what I'm seeing. How can I move the needle forward? How can I improve and impact and enhance conversations and resources so we can do better and healthier for the generations to come, for the people that are living now that are ready to go on the journey? Heidi Blackie has made that her mission, her purpose, and we're going to unfold all of that today with her story here on the F.E.E.L Podcast. She describes herself as curious, compassionate, optimistic, loyal, and a lifelong learner. Heidi, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa. I'm really excited to be in conversation with you.
I am too. I am excited to share you and your story. And I think it's going to connect with so many people because these are areas that most of us are living with ourselves or people that are dealing with so many of the things we're going to talk about today, but they don't feel like they can talk about it still. Even now, with all the language we have, with all the resources we have, with the engaging discussions that are starting to happen, there is still a lot to unpack when it comes to conversations, honest conversations about our mental health and how it impacts us in all the areas of our health. And so let's start with your journey with prioritizing self-care, because that's a key component in this. So talk to me about your journey with understanding how this component fits into your wellness.
Yeah, thank you. So self-care now looks very different than before I got sick. Before I got sick, I was going a million miles an hour. I was a million miles from myself. I was an athlete, competitive athlete. I didn't have time to slow down. I was working full time. I had my schedule was stuffed. Yeah. And I would ask my patients and clients, what do you do for relaxation? I don't have time for relaxation. I'd say, neither do I. I like movement. I'm right there with you. And eventually it took its toll, along with a lot of losses and stress, and forced me to slow down. And through that whole health journey, my self-care practice has moved to the very top of my list, because if I don't have my health, I have nothing. And it is my priority from the moment I get out of bed, and I start off with movement in nature, usually with my dog. And I never take headphones. I want to hear the birds. I want to smell the flowers. I want to really be in gratitude and be present. And that's such a part of every morning. It's kind of, I'm a little bit selfish in terms of, I don't want anybody to join me, because I just want to experience the unfolding of the day in that intimate way. Just me, my dog, nature. And I'm a changed person when I walk back in the door. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how tired I am or fatigued or what's going on in my life. I just modify kind of the level of effort in terms of what I'm doing, if I'm running or I'm roller skiing or I'm just walking. And breath work is another. And then just mindfulness when I eat. Like I eat very clean, but I also sit there and I visualize the hands that tended the seeds and the soil and the sun and the rain and the plants that are, life and living beings that are giving me life and giving me energy.
Yeah.
And then sleep is another one that's really important because I get up really early and I need to take care of myself and get to bed early. And I try, and I have a very long bedtime routine, but I get there most of the time early enough to get a full, 8 hours of sleep. So those are some of my self-care things. And I mean, it's hours a day, but it keeps me going and keeps me grounded and alive and to show up as the person that I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And setting intention is a big part of it too.
Yeah. As I was listening to you, the word that kept coming to me, 2 words, groundedness and presence. You are starting in such a grounded place, such a great foundation, such great stability. So you are going to be able to move forward in your day, present, refreshed, focused, alert, all of these things that feed into us. And if this idea that I don't have time, I'm like, you do have time. And I always tell women, you have time. I'm going to help you find it because we're going to reframe and reshape how you view yourself and how you view your time and your calendar and what you're putting into it versus what's really aligned with you and serving you. But those components, you're worth the investment. You also know what it takes. You've seen the other side of what not doing this looks like. And you and I were talking beforehand. So many times we have to hit a wall and see others hit a wall before we tend to this, before it gets our attention, partly because so many things, society, the cultural narratives we're getting, the examples that we see, the things we're not taught and told about our whole wellness and all that it takes to take care of ourselves, the incorrect things we're told, that prioritizing yourself and putting yourself first is selfish rather than, no. No one wins when I don't take care of me. Nobody in my life wins. And so if we even could switch a few of those narratives and get upriver on this, upstream on this, I mean, you were talking to me about the fact that beforehand, that how your father has supported research happening at Stanford right now about helping kids, getting to them when they're young with these mental health things that they are facing. Let's get upriver and give people resources so we don't get to these spaces and places. But we live in such a reactionary and throw everything else to the side to get this one goal. And if I do these things on this list, then everything will be good. And we completely abandon ourselves and what we actually need in the process. So I love this really conscious, really intentional, stabilizing routine that you have in place. I think it's just that's such a great example of what that can look like.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the things when I was sick, I taught a lot of nervous system regulation techniques. I taught somatics, all that stuff. And I was doing all these practices, limbic system retraining, neuroplasticity stuff. But I really felt like it was so prescriptive. Mm-hmm. And I always felt this little piece missing that was me. Mm-hmm. And that, we tend to look at, here's a vagus nerve thing. Here's a nervous system thing. Here's a somatic thing. But if we're just doing them to check them off the list and we're not really connecting and having that come from a place of me and creating that safety to peel back the layers, which we'll get to. But I think that was there's a lot out there in self-care, but again, it can feel like we're grasping at things rather than, okay, I need to, and I do meditation and journaling and other things that really help ground me. And those were the pieces that were kind of missing from the other things that I was doing before for self-care. But I think it's deeper than that, because it has to touch us deeply to really be caring for the deepest self, and
meeting us where we are. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you can do all kinds of things. You can do all the yoga, all the meditation. I was a runner for years. And so I went running every day. I ran. I didn't do the other things, but I did a lot of processing and moving things out. And so I was, without intention, doing some clearing out mentally and emotionally, and working some things out of my body physically, which is probably what kept me from hitting my wall until 50. I probably would have hit it sooner. But
and it's great. That's a really important coping strategy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to discount that.
Yeah, for sure. But there's more to it. I think that's what we've both learned, is there's more. That's not the full piece. If you're not making connections in those other spaces, because I tell people all the time, at the end, we'll have some questions that we answer about activities that nourish you and how you want to feel the next 6 months. We started off with introducing yourself by your character traits. Those are things when I'm working with women in groups or individually, I'm like, we're going to start here. We're going to get you a baseline of connecting you back to you. And let's see if if you have a self-care routine in place, is it meeting you where you actually are? Or is it just a list of things that somebody told you to do? So you're doing, and it's probably not hurting you, but you're probably not getting what you need to be getting out of it, because you haven't made that connection to you. So I love that you brought that piece up, because we can put all the other things on it we want. If we're not finding a connection with it, it's just going to be a checklist item, and we're going to come out of it feeling, I feel like I should feel better than this. I mean, I did all these things, and you did all these things consciously, but you didn't necessarily do them with intention of calming your nervous system, clearing your mind, clearing out the noise, allowing space for other things to come in. There's so much power in going outside and breathing the air and listening to the wind and feeling the sunshine on your face, or the rain or the snow, or whatever it is, the breeze. There's a real healing power that exists with that if you can get yourself present in the moment and really fully invested in that.
Yeah. And I think too, you mentioned scarcity of time, and most people wake up with that scarcity mindset of there isn't enough time. I did for 20 years, but when you have that prescriptive list of things, it's, here I've got to get this, and it can compile or compound that feeling of scarcity of time. And then it's hard to focus, and what's the why? What am I getting out of this? Is this because, again, somebody told me to do it? Or is this because this really helps me to deeply connect with myself and something bigger, So, yeah.
Yeah. And being able to identify where you are. Sometimes I don't do this daily as much as I used to when I was really knee deep and unpacking all this, but I still have it. It's still something I lean on, especially when I'm feeling like, these things I did today that normally meet me and help me aren't meeting me. I need something more. Well, I write down all the emotions I'm feeling and try to what is this tied to? What do I need to do to serve that, to allow that, to move that through? Is there a narrative behind this that I need to unlearn and unpack? It's triggering me, or is it spaced out of truth? I mean, getting okay, so what do I need in this moment right now? What am I not getting that I need to pay attention to?
Yeah. And I think too, there are times when I'll wake up with tension, or I'll notice tension, and I can't think of anything that is giving me that, the source of it. And there's a practice that I do that's kind of that's about allowing and just allowing that tension to be here or that fatigue to be here. And it's here. Take a seat. There's a lot else here. And it's so, it's just our nature to not want to sit with discomfort.
Yeah.
We don't
We're very
want
uncomfortable. We're very uncomfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes. And everywhere in our culture, there are millions of places we can go to get away from it or things we can do. And when you sit with it and that feeling, that, and you label it, that can help take some of the charge out of it. And when I was overwhelmed by my symptoms, it was all consuming. I couldn't see anything else because the things that scream the loudest are the things that took all of my attention. But opening up that curiosity and that awareness of what else is here. You know, you talked about the standing in the sun or the rain or the snow, you know, getting your senses involved. It doesn't mean that you're running away from how you're feeling. It just means that there's, you know, I think we're like a whole beach instead of a single grain of sand that we tend to focus on. That is either the symptoms or the least attractive thing that about ourselves of the day, or the negative thinking or inner critic. But really being able to sit with some of that discomfort and let it be here instead of resisting it, which actually escalates your nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's a way to calm your system, help you feel safer. And just that moment's impermanent. There will be another one. And you might feel different. There might be something else that's calling to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you so much for all of that. And this feeds nicely into confidently setting boundaries. You have a very clear routine that you're very like, and I loved you said, I feel kind of selfish. I'm like, that is not selfish. That is so cool. That is you knowing like, no, this time's for me. I need to fill my cup. I know what I need for me to show up the way I want to each day. So I'm going to do this. So you have really clearly defined that for yourself. And so I love that intention and that never abandoning yourself in that space, because again, been on the other side of that. It doesn't serve you well. Talk to me about the journey of understanding the importance of setting those intentions, those healthy boundaries for yourself.
Boundaries. That's something that I really didn't have a lot of boundaries. I grew up with generations of guilt. And so the obligatory, you know, this is what you do. And as women, we are conditioned to, you know, say yes. And I'm an empath and I take on a lot. And that's part of why I left therapy and one-on-one, because it was so depleting. And boundaries are something that I had to have them around my illness. I had to slow down. I had to say no. I couldn't go places. I couldn't be around people. But I still showed up to make dinner every night because I'm at home. I'm not working. I had the guilt of I'm sick. I can't drive, but I leave the stove on, but I need to do that, you know? And so boundaries is something that I look at as I need to check in with my how I feel. And also the intention. So if there's something that I just really don't want to do, but it's really important to my husband or a friend, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to show up as my best, you know, self, as my best self. I'm going to be authentically there and not resent it. Whereas so many times when I said yes, when I wanted to say no, I was so full of tension and resentment and the shoulds. And I look at boundaries as a part of self-care. And when you haven't had boundaries, and then you start setting boundaries. And this is funny because I started my career in the psych unit and I taught assertiveness class and stress class and all of that to people who are on the psych unit. And I always said, if you're a people pleaser and you turn around and start setting boundaries, expect it to backfire. But that means you're on track, because people who are used to you always saying yes are going to not really respond well when you start saying no. They're used to you saying yes, take it on. We can count on her.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard, that kind of tug. Should I, am I being selfish? But stay true to yourself. And it's about self-care. We spread ourselves too thin. I was for so many years, and there's a day of reckoning somewhere ahead. If you haven't met it yet, it is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also set boundary. Oh, go.
Well, I'm just going to say, that's why you and I are doing this. You don't have to get there. Listen to what we're saying. You don't have to get there. Take steps now.
Yeah. And it can look different for everybody. You know, it's got to work for you. But the other piece of boundaries is boundaries around myself in terms of my energy. Where am I losing energy? And being aware of that and calling it back and really addressing that, as well as the negative self-talk, the going down the rabbit hole of, oh, here we go, I'm having a flare-up. What does this mean? Going back to those old narratives. So there's a lot that I do in terms of just rerouting myself with a boundary around, we don't do that anymore, and really shifting that pathway. And it's, it's really dependent on how I'm feeling, how much sleep, all these things, but boundaries around my expectations of myself. How much am I going to get done? What am I doing today? So it's really broad. It isn't just around other people and their expectations. It's around my expectations of myself and how I can be kind to myself.
Yeah.
And
so good. Yeah. Thanks so much for that. That was, so many things there. That being kind to ourselves, knowing our value is such a key. And we'll get into that. We'll get into expectations and values and why later, because that's all tightly connected here. So hold that thought. But right now we're going to go into taking care of our mental health, emotional health, physical health. You know this road very well. You know this for yourself. You've seen it play out in your family in in sad ways, in difficult ways. So talk to me about your understanding of this. You've worked in this mental health world. Like, you very clearly understand and have a connection to this. And also, you and I were talking before we got on today, there are still so many stigmas and so many places where people feel isolated, alone, not safe in being honest and open about what they're dealing with and getting and asking for the help and resources and support they need. And so these conversations are so important to continue to open doors, to continue to invite people in, to walk through that door, to feel safe, to not feel judged or stigmatized, and getting rid of the language and the microaggressions that still exist around so many of these mental health diagnoses that are out there. So talk to me about this journey of yours of learning to take care of your own mental, physical, emotional health and knowing the connection that exists within them. And also how you've seen it play out in your own family and how that has motivated you to be so committed to the way you show up in the world today.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot there, Melissa.
I know. I just gave you the massive semester final, like all in one question.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit growing up. I was in a perfectionist family growing up, and I never felt like enough. And I see that still playing out in terms of, my dad being a perfectionist. And to me, perfectionism is about not feeling enough. And it's these unrealistic standards that we set for ourselves that drive us. And I call myself a recovering perfectionist. But there's a cost, and what is it costing to strive for it? I went for the master's degree and the advanced certifications that require, 10 months of studying and an exam and wanting to be the best that I can possibly be, which I don't think is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But when you tie your identity to it, then you can run into problems like I did when I got stripped of all of the things that I went for in terms of my achievements in my life. When I got sick and I lost my career and I couldn't ride my bike and I couldn't drive and do the things, just daily tasks were monumental for me. And when your identity is tied up in that, which our culture really, that is a very, dominant narrative. Yeah. And that's gone. The rug has come out from under you. What is left? Yeah. Who are you? And it's funny when you ask a person, who are you? Well, I'm a sister. I'm a architect. I'm a athlete. Well, those are all labels.
Yeah. They give you all their titles and roles. And
that's not you.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? And that losing it all is what forced me to go inside to find who I am. Society doesn't teach us how to be ourselves.
They don't even encourage it.
No.
You're told from very early on of all the ways you're not showing up the way you're supposed to. I mean, I think exactly we all between like ages 4 and 6 is where it showed up for me. And I think it's for a lot of people 3, 4, and look at yourself at your 3 and 4 versus 5 or 6 or 7. There's a shift most of the time because you've started realizing, you started seeing the messages that are happening around you and adjusted yourself to fit the narrative that is happening instead of just feeling free to continue to be that whoever you were as your authentic self at 3 and 4.
Right. And having parents that celebrate who you are and really support and encourage that.
Yeah.
And I think that takes a pretty evolved parent,
it really does.
and I look at people who have had that kind of parenting and I think, wow, they're really confident, independent people. And I mean, I'm independent and I'm confident now that I've found who I am and
done the work.
I've done a lot of work and reparented myself. But it's really, and I actually take pride in not being normal, outside of it. It tells me, great, I don't want to be the herd. I want to be me, and I think and that's part of the whole problem we have with mental health these days too, is you're getting it from everywhere. It's so saturated. And I'm so glad that, I didn't grow up with social media. I mean, it can be so toxic.
It's a whole other layer of an issue.
Yeah. And especially at times where your hormones and you're taken over by, you're impressionable, and it's exactly, it does start young. And if you can work with kids so they don't get to the point where so many adults are, or just numbing themselves as adults because no time to go inward or don't want to see what's there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been an evolution for me. I knew that I never felt enough. That wasn't a revelation to me through my illness journey, but it was something that I always compensated so much for before presentations, before a complex patient. I'd study, I'd way overthink things, over prepare. I'd mull over a decision forever. And once I got to that acceptance, all those compensations fell away. It was so freeing. It was like, wow, okay, I don't have to prop myself up anymore to give this illusion of who I am.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So we learned, it's unfortunate. And it's like, that's why I'm so passionate about getting this framework I talk about into girls and women's hands early on, is because I don't want you to have to learn the hard way. But, when you hit rock bottom, like you said, when you hit and all these things come to a head and you have no choice, it's when you start unpacking things and start realizing all that you've been carrying that you don't need to carry. It's like the physical manifestation of lightness is startling at first. Like, holy cow, I had no idea I was so heavy and bogged down with that. Like, when you can physically feel that movement, that release, it's eye-opening. It is just eye-opening.
It really is. And I think too, it's not like, okay, I'm here and I don't have to do anymore. It's ongoing because we're in a dynamic world, and really having, realizing, I love this saying, and some people say it's Viktor Frankl, but there isn't anywhere that it's been found in his writing, but somewhere between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom and your power. And that's, the research shows that in order to access our prefrontal cortex, we need about 30 seconds. Whereas our reactive primitive brain, it's faster than reflexive. I mean, it's 2 milliseconds, if even that. And by having an awareness of yourself and pausing to choose how you respond to whatever it is, has been a big piece of my ability to kind of regulate emotion. And there are definitely triggering things that I'm having a little inner dialogue with myself. Like, okay, just breathe, be open. When we have things we're very passionate about, and then someone takes an alternative stance without being as informed or whatever, it's hard I just feel like all the nervous system, but then just breathe with it. And you can only do you, and what's your intention, and, respond. I want to choose how I respond. I don't want my primitive brain to choose how I respond. And that pathway, the more you do it, the faster it is, the easier it is to call upon it and to know awareness. And, I don't make the right choice every time, but at least it's more like watching a train wreck in slow motion than I say something that I don't mean. And I see myself going there and I say, yeah, I'm choosing that. I'm choosing to go there. Here we go.
Yeah.
I know it's not great, but I'm not perfect and I'm doing the best I can and I'm going to screw up. But I think that's a really big piece of processing emotions for me is being really aware and in touch with myself and how it feels in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. The intentionality again, such a key component, and power of the pause. We underestimate the power of the pause. That is a theme that's continuing to come up on episodes lately. I think,
yeah,
you're trying to tell me something too. There's because that is, we live in such a reactionary society, in such a reactionary environment right now. Especially, it feels like more reactionary or at least as reactionary as I've seen in my lifetime. Like, everybody pause and let's think this through. Let's think about impact. And I need this for myself every day. But that power of the pause, because then you just take a moment and assess impact, assess, how this is going to, looking down the road. Okay, what am I going to have to do energy wise to repair if I keep moving down this road, versus pausing and making a different choice, or even recognizing, you said earlier, even recognizing that we have a choice is freeing. Like,
yeah. And who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as? There are times when my husband will say something and I think, I want to come from a place of love and compassion. And I'm going to choose that and make my response from that place. And boy, does it make me feel better about who I am. And it makes him feel better and he's less reactive. And that's the thing. If we're aware of ourselves and how we have so much power. And if I don't respond defensively, but I respond instead with an openness or a curiosity or a kindness, that's going to disarm their defenses. They're expecting you to come after them with your defenses.
Yeah.
But that doesn't build bridges and it doesn't make people, disarmed and be able to access that part of the brain and be able to have a conversation. And I think that's a big thing that's missing. We stand so strongly in our convictions that we're willing to defend them at the cost of, trying to be the change that we want in the world. And I think it's better to be, do you want to be right or do you want to be in relationship? And I think, everybody's got their own perspective. Nobody knows exactly where someone's coming from. And if we can check ourselves and choose where we want to come from.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. You can only do you, Melissa. You can't change anybody else, but you can approach conflict or approach a situation from a place of openness and, curiosity instead of defensiveness.
That curiosity word, I talk about it a lot on here. It's been a key component of my journey. Curiosity over judgment. We talked about yesterday. I hosted a panel yesterday where we talked about if you can stop for a minute, pause, and approach situations with love and curiosity, you're not ever going to go wrong. You might not get everything, but you're at least going to open the door for conversations instead of closing the door. You're going to understand and see the nuance and how someone's story informs and how they landed in a space. And then maybe from there, when you show each other compassion, a willingness to listen, a willingness to be curious rather than judgmental, then you, and that's something I'm learning every day, and that I'm learning how to practice, because that is not my natural way of being. And I think, but just that pause though, but I don't think it's a lot of our natural ways of being. It takes intention.
I don't think it is. Yeah. I look around and I don't think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we're on autopilot. I mean, I don't feel like it. It's true.
It is. And disassociated.
95% of the time.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, I mean, I felt like I was sleepwalking through life, and I felt like I was pretty connected, but I clearly wasn't, I know. And I think it's that coupled with we're in this rat race, feeling scarcity, feeling defensive, and we don't have time, and we just react. We don't have the space to contemplate or to, it's too much work to think about where are you coming from? What is this like for you? So I'm just going to react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which just actually adds more to the issue than if you took the time to pause. I mean, it's interesting how our brains work and we don't see that connection. Thank you so much. Those so many good points there. And this goes nicely into, and this is really going to be an opportunity for you to talk about what you offer and how you show up in the world today, because it goes so seamlessly with this next talking point, how we can support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically. Everything you do pours into this. So talk about that and how you decided this is the direction I want to go for me, and also for the others that this is going to support and help and serve.
Yeah. Well, I never set out to build anything. And it kind of came to me one day, unshakable me. But it's my journey of making that decision to go inward, because I was at a point where I had no doctor, I had no diagnosis, I had no treatment plan, and I was very alone and just so filled with despair. And I had been looking for answers and didn't find any. And it was the question that I asked myself that was a real turning point. And that was, what am I believing about my ability to heal? And the raw truth of that was that I wasn't believing that I would heal, and that I would continue to get worse, because that was the trajectory I was on. And that was a painful reality to sit with. Talk about sitting with your discomfort. And in that moment, I thought, I am it. I need to believe in me, and I need to believe in my ability to heal. And I made that vow to myself. I had no idea what it would look like. I had no idea what I was doing. Because most of my life I hadn't believed in myself. And I just, every day I journaled, what am I believing? And I created new narratives of healing, and I put sticky notes all over. Believe. I had anchors. Believe. Every time fear told me I wouldn't get better, I replaced it with belief. And this took years to really start that relationship with myself. And it was kind of like meeting myself for the first time, because I had never kind of gone through the layers of me. and all the vulnerabilities, and meeting them with acceptance and meeting them with compassion. And what that built over the years was this, what I call my unshakable me. And that's the part of you that is enough. It's the part of you that always loves you and wants the best for you and is rooting for you. It's always there. It's that deep well of strength and of joy. I've experienced more joy and freedom and possibility than I've ever imagined. And I've had a good life. But this part of me has become this ally. And that partnership with myself has given so much courage and power to step out of my comfort zone, to finally use my voice and not be afraid of what other people think. And that connection is at the root of Unshakable Me, which is my program for women to really connect with themselves and rewrite the limiting stories and beliefs that keep them captive and live with greater clarity and purpose and possibility.
Yeah.
But at the root of it, if you don't have that deep connection with yourself, and believe that I've got the courage, I deserve this to live, to really embrace life, then I think it's hard to live unapologetically and authentically. So I just think anything you can do today to support yourself, look in the mirror at how, really look in the mirror and I love you. I see so hard my body is working to heal. I am so excited about what you did today or, whatever it is. But as much as you can really give yourself the compassion that you would give a friend who would ask for help, that's how you really step into your power and really blossom and live fully. And that's my belief, and that's acceptance and it's connection, and it allows you to have the most incredible relationships because you're so connected to yourself and you know what you've been through, and you afford that with others. You give them compassion because you see the pain they're struggling with. And it's just this big open door. It's to the horizon of just possibility.
Yeah. Well, and when you're able to do that, when you realize, and I've talked about this a lot lately, we have it all within us. If we can just tap into ourselves and open ourselves up to that possibility and believe in ourselves. And that's exactly what you did. You were like, okay, I've got nowhere to go but up here. And I'm not throwing in the towel on myself. I'm not going to do that. I'm choosing differently. And then you were able to do the hard work, because this is hard work. It's
a choice every day.
Absolutely. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But when you're able to do that and tap into it, then I think it's just a natural overflow and outflow that you want to provide that resource to others because you know what's possible.
Yeah. I want this for everyone. I want everybody to feel this just, this lightness of being, this, and, I have hard days. I'm not going to gloss that over, but they're different. I just meet them differently. And I feel like, I found my purpose. I want to help people connect with themselves so we can connect with each other and really help our world and nature. I mean, that's a huge thing for me. But it's this conditioning that everything is outside ourselves. And that's the quick fix, the instant gratification. And, I think of changing my belief as it's a living organism and it needs to be nurtured and cultivated every day in some way. And it's growing and changing. And some days it's a little like wilted, and other days it's up toward the sun. And it's this kind of evolution, this unfolding that will be for the rest of my life, but I'm excited about it. Like, I love it. And I can't get enough of it. I'm just like, So I want to shout it from mountaintops. I want to do the whole Sound of Music thing, because it's such a rich way to live. Like, I feel like I'm living. I feel like it's Technicolor. I was in black and white for 50 years. And now I'm in Technicolor, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That was so good, and really goes nicely into, it helped you really understand and connect with your why and your values and what you do. This journey really informed that. Where would you say your why and values were before this versus after it?
Well, before, my why was doing, all the doing. And my why now is being present, being intentional, being authentic, being a leader. It's just daily setting intention for, living to my highest good and the highest good of all, and being present. And I was a million miles from myself. I was too busy, pushing through, pushing.
Yes. And I think too, especially when you're competitive and you're like, you get this, and in our generation, especially, no pain, no gain, keep pushing harder, see what you're made of. You've got more in you than you think you do and that is true to a degree, but we push ourselves physically to just these points beyond where we're not, our bodies are sending us messages. I need some food. I need some water. I need some sleep. I need some rest. I need a vacation. I need a chance to recharge. And we just keep pushing because the culture rewards that. We wear this like a badge of honor. And especially when you're used to winning and competing. And, it's interesting trying to create healthy cultures even around that piece. My husband and I were both athletes. My daughters were all athletes. And so how do you cultivate these cultures of wellness within that? And then trying to, and then looking at yourselves when you finally hit the wall and hit the burnout, and you realize this way of being is not serving me, and it's not serving anyone around me. And I've got to really get clear and redefine and unlearn and relearn what actually is healthy, what actually is showing up as my full self, in the healthiest way I want to be. Because, all these other ways that I've been told are the healthiest physical way to exist in the world, I'm crushed and burned. It didn't work. And so,
yeah.
And that can be a big job.
We glorify it. You're glorified. Whoever gets the least amount of sleep, works the hardest, has this busiest schedule. Oh, they're doing it. They're killing it. They're killing it.
And they're killing themselves. Exactly. Yeah. And we've seen it time and time again. And I do see the generations of, like, my three daughters. They have a very different way of making choices in the world about how their work connects to their quality of life, connects to what they do outside of their work. There's much more. They're taking a much more holistic view at that than my husband and I did, than our generation did. And they just are like, I see what mom and dad did. That was certainly a step forward from where our grandparents were, but there was still some real issues here. And we're not going to go down that road.
That's so healthy.
Yeah. And seeing the fact that mom and dad kind of fell apart a little bit about midstream along the way.
Well, it's good for them to see that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And that realization and then act on it. But I see that across the board in this generation, though. They're seeing, but I also, our generation is finally saying, no, we've hit these walls, because it's not like the generations ahead of us didn't hit these walls, but I think we're opening the doors to more language around it and not having to do it in silence. And we finally are just like, this is not serving us. We have to stop this train. We have to reroute this and get off this track and make a new, different, healthier track. I mean, this is not the way to exist. And we're seeing it across the board in how we talk about mental health, how we talk about menopause, how we talk about heart health, women, so many narratives that we're like, no. We're not just going to accept the answer of, oh, that's just the way it is. No, that's the way it has been. That doesn't mean it's the way it has to be. So we are disrupting, but it makes me excited. I feel like we're disrupting and we're opening the door. And I feel like the generations to come are going to really just sprint through it and have a better quality of life because of it.
Yeah. I mean, our mortality age is 77. I mean, it's going down, and I have several friends who've gotten breast cancer at 50 or under. Mm-hmm. And it's really playing out in so many people's health. Yeah. And I think it's, for a lot of people, you have to hit the wall for it to initiate change.
Yeah.
Because change is hard. It's easy to say, well, I'd rather stay unhappy and stuck in a job that I hate for the stability than I don't even know what I would want to do. I don't even, and I think it's getting in touch with yourself and you get one life in this body. Yeah. And so, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it for? What's the meaning there? Yeah.
There's got to be, I remember even before I had my crash at 50, I was like at 47, a couple years before, where I started thinking, I'm like, something's not right here. I should be more content than I am. I should have more joy than I do. I shouldn't live in this foreboding joy, waiting for the shoe to drop narrative. What is going on here? And so it was happening in my head, but I just didn't know how to tap into it. And so I kept kind of picking away at it. And then we had a few things happen. We had some moves and some different things that came up and lifed. And all of a sudden, a couple of years later, I went, crashed into the wall. And it was then that I was like, oh, I was addressing these nudges, but I was just I was asking the question, but I wasn't looking for the answer, because looking for the answer scared me because I didn't know what was behind that door. And it wasn't until the crash that I'm like, I kind of don't have a choice now. And, and how am I going to pick myself up from this? And also my husband looked at me and saying, listen, I have watched you carry this load our whole marriage. And this buddy anxiety has been a long-standing partner in hypervigilance and keeping you safe, but you're safe. So it's time to have a conversation with your nervous system and yourself to we don't have to exist like this anymore. And I think, I went into it with, I'm going to go to a therapist for 6 months. I'm going to get some tools. I'm going to come out and I'm going to go on and live my life. And here I am, 5.5 years later, still going to therapy, still unpacking the layers, but man, and such a different space than I could have ever imagined I could be in. So, Heidi and I think a lot of people
put it off.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And a lot of people say, when I retire or when I get the promotion or when I, and that never when is that going to come? Why not now?
Right.
You can find little bits of joy every day.
Yeah.
It's not mutually exclusive from the everyday things that you have, or even the pain in your life. They can all be here.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to just put up with a less than fulfilling life than to really get out of the comfort zone and see what's possible. And you might fail, and that's life. You learn from it.
You do.
And it's just that safety that we like. And it's our DNA. It's
sure.
Served us well. We're still here on the planet, but it takes that. And I was going to say, Melissa, it takes that awareness.
Yeah.
If you're not aware and you're just going with the script, then it's
you can't address the things that you don't acknowledge and don't call to awareness, for sure. And it's very easy to stay comfortable in that space. Our nervous system likes comfort, even if it's completely unhealthy for us. I mean, even if we're surrounded with very trauma bond and codependent relationships, it's what our nervous system knows. And so that's why sometimes you talked about it with boundaries earlier. When you start showing up differently, when you start responding differently or not responding, or, your nervous system at first is going to be like, wait a minute.
Go back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no. We're learning and learning. I'm here for you. I don't need you to protect me in this way anymore. I'm in a safe space now. It's time to thank you for how you served me. Yeah, it's okay for you to step aside. Yeah. And so that can be it. So,
we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that feeds into, living out of your own expectations versus others. You were able to make that shift. You were able to move into that space with this renewal and intention that you spent with yourself. Talk to me about that expectations journey and how it feels now to be living out of your own versus others.
I mean, it feels like I'm choosing my life versus living a script that I see so many people around me living.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with being different. And it's funny because, I look the same on the outside, but I feel so different inside. And I love it. It's kind of like my little secret with myself. But one of the things that I do on expectations is just that ability to adapt and flex the expectations that I have of myself, because I still have in some way, this really, it's a delusion really in terms of the amount of time it takes to do things. I mean, I wear all the hats of my business. And so I think, this will, I have a little IT problem. It'll take me an hour or whatever. Well, it's half the day or more than half the day. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop. And one of my big problems, speaking of boundaries, back to boundaries, is ending work at, 5 or 6. But I'll work till 7 or 8, even, later and on weekends. And so it's saying, okay, adjust expectations. And unless it's a deliverable, then you're done at this hour and that's it. Put it away. And I have a really hard time with that. And on weekends, I think I can, my husband will have a little powwow in the morning and what's on your list today and what's on my list today. And exercise is always, kind of at the top, but I'll have, I'm going to dig up the bamboo and I'm going to vacuum the house. And grocery shop and laundry, and it's just this, okay, good luck with that. Cause that's just so it's taking the list and really looking at what are the priorities. And I need to get the house in a state where I'm not, this is driving me nuts. But at the same time, it's about self-care and taking that time off to play, to laugh, to refuel, and not have it be about the shoulds and the work and the whatever, and being okay with that, letting it go and being okay with letting it go. So my expectations are different from society, but it's an ongoing tug of war with what's real and what's delusion.
I understand that completely. It's really hard. And I think especially when your work is something you're so passionate about, like for me, I sometimes I'll cross that line and then all of a sudden I'm like, God, I'm really tired. I'm really feeling it today. I'm like, you haven't honored the fact that if you want this to continue to be something that lights you up, you feel invigorated, you still got to fill your cup. You still got to take that time to do that and be intentional about that and not let that blur that you still need to take those intentional spaces away so you can come back fulfilled, fresh, thinking of, the creativity, feeling, flowing around and moving like it should, because you have been. So I understand that very much. And sometimes it's like we share these resources because we need them first and foremost. We created them first for ourselves, and now we're offering them out to you. But don't be mistaken. We're utilizing these and having to remind ourselves of these things all the time. All right. You've addressed this a lot throughout already, but accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. You really had to take that dive and really do that. And you and I were talking about before where you've seen generations ahead of you, just they were only able to go so far with it, or even other people in your family where they just weren't able to take that journey and the tragic results of that. And so that impacts the way you see things and the way you approach things and how you realize this is really important. And if I don't take the time to do this, there's going to be a real impact here. That's going to be something that is, I don't want to go down. I've seen what can happen here, and I'm not willing to take myself down that road. I know I can be healthier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a big generational thing. And I see it, like we said, I see it playing out in my dad with his PTSD from childhood, and it's still there.
Yeah.
And the reality is, unless you really address it, it's going to be that thorn in your side that you're carrying around, and that weight, and I look at, my sister who committed suicide in 2016, and she was bipolar, but there was also a lot of layers there that had she, that's the thing with suicide. You always think the what ifs. If she had really help in that piece of loving herself for who she is, and that acceptance piece. And, I wonder, would that have changed anything, and it doesn't matter either way. It's like, this is what is. Yeah. And as much as you argue with what is, that's the cause of your suffering if you don't accept it. And I think that we have to be vulnerable with ourselves in order to connect with ourselves, and vulnerability. And I'm in a Toastmasters group, and I also do some public speaking, and I share some pretty intimate and painful parts of my journey, not because I want to just dump. It isn't intended for that. It's more, I want to create a space for people to be able to be vulnerable themselves, and be vulnerable with themselves. Brene Brown talks a lot about being
I was just going to mention
with
Brene.
other people.
Yeah.
But she has a TED Talk where a guy said, well, what about being vulnerable with yourself? And she's like, you can't be vulnerable with yourself. That isn't, and I think, to me, that is the biggest vulnerability, is to be able to be vulnerable with yourself and to say, wow, that's here. That's a part of me. It isn't me.
Right.
And that was
not my whole identity.
No. Yeah. And for so many years, I resisted my illnesses.
Yeah.
I had patients who lost everything, and I didn't want to, and I was like, I'm an athlete. I'm a robust person. And the reality was, I wasn't an athlete anymore. I wasn't very robust at that time, but that's not what acceptance means. Acceptance doesn't mean it defines you. And I thought for so many years, if I accept it, that means I'm a sick person. I'm a chronically ill person. And all the labels and the stigma that goes with that, because there's a ton of stigma with chronic illness. And it was this really freeing, and it allowed me to kind of move past that with acceptance. And it wasn't even what acceptance is. And then accepting the circumstances in the present, that's an imperfect moment. And accepting it means that you can open up to the next moment. And so being vulnerable gives you that ability to look at the buffet of you and say, hey, there are some things that I might like to not have here, but look at all these other things, and look at, and the whole thing is me. Yeah. I'm not any one amazing thing or terrible thing. I'm all of it. And we're so much more complicated and complex than we think, and I think that getting at that layers and really, acceptance has changed everything. Yeah. Everything.
Yeah. Thank you I love the buffet analogy. I think that's so good. And you hit it on the head. There are seasons and choices and decisions and relationships and things that happen that we have no control over, that have impacted us, that we don't love, but we have to at least give them the acknowledgement. We don't have to love it, but again, that curiosity over judgment, given the space and place I was in at that time. I don't love I did that, but I see where it came from. So I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to acknowledge it. I am devastated that my sister made this choice. And also, I know the value of being vulnerable and providing a safe space. And I'm going to move forward with that. I'm not going to let what happened to her, not impact the way I can show up for myself and other people in a way that can be supportive and resourceful and loving and kind and empathetic. And I'm going to be mindful of the language that I use with people, because I know language is important for the things that I struggle with and that my family struggled with. I mean, there's so many ways that when we can acknowledge those things and give them the room to breathe and be, and see them as the buffet of all that we are, and not identify and get stuck in identity of any one of them. That's where the freedom really comes. And I love that you mentioned the vulnerability piece with yourself, because that's an important piece of it. And even a researcher who's researched more on that than anybody, even she can have a tripping point there. And she talks openly about her own tripping points. But yeah, that ability to be loving and kind with yourself first. I mean, for me, the layers journey is the component that really impacts everything else. Because if you can embrace your layers and acknowledge them, you know your value, then you're going to prioritize your self-care. You're going to understand that you need healthy boundaries in your life. You're going to live out of your own expectations and not other people. You're going to understand what is intentionally meaningful to you, what your values are, what your why is, because you know who you are and you've accepted who you are and you embrace who you are, all that comes with it, without judgment and with curiosity. And that then informs how you show up in all these other spaces for yourself and in turn for other people. I mean, it's such a key component of this. So thank you so much for all that you shared there. So good. All right.
And you don't have to look for it outside yourself.
Yes.
Any of it.
Yes.
I just wanted to add that because that's
Absolutely.
so big.
Oh,
it's all there inside. Nobody can take it from you. No one.
No.
No.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank
there.
you for that. It is there.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, we have so much more within us than we realize. We are such complex, nuanced beings that we have the capability of holding and feeling multiple things at one time. And so I think giving that acknowledgement, that awareness, then allows it room to breathe and for us to really show up the way that we need to for ourselves. So, I mean, there's just so many, it's really, it's just such an important, I think for me, it's the component. Like when I'm working with people in groups or one-on-one, I actually start with the layers piece. And then we go into, okay, we're going to talk about your layers. We're going to start unpacking things. And as we do this, we're going to ask yourself those key questions of your character traits. What nourishes you? How do you want to feel the next 6 months? And as you do that, and then we're going to ask you to invite you to, with curiosity rather than judgment, to approach this. And that's going to lay the groundwork for everything else we're going to talk about here. That's how important.
Yeah.
Because we prioritize what we value.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love the work you're doing, Melissa.
Yeah, you too. I mean, we're really doing this, and this is what I love, is that we all have our own take on this. It's going to appeal to different people depending on where we're at. And that's why it's so important that we're all doing this, because someone out there needs us and how we're showing up. And so this whole idea, that's why I'm so passionate about bringing women on with their voices and their resources to provide a menu of options to women when they come to our platform. Like, we've got a whole network to support you. I've got this F.E.E.L framework. And within that, there's all these things that are going to feed all these areas of it to show up and support you and meet you where you are and give you what you need. So yeah. So important.
So important. And so many of us out there, which is great because there are a lot of people seeking, this is what we need to do for, I believe for changing the world, it
absolutely
starts with each one of us, I think there can't be enough of us, really.
100%.
I think this is what we need. Connect with ourselves first, then we can.
Because when
really
we can connect with each other and move forward together, that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So good. Mm-hmm. All right. You hit this perfectly earlier when we were talking about living unapologetically. And you mentioned, the impact that you going in and doing this work on yourself made your relationships just explode in the best way and just allowed just the best evolution of that. Is there anything you want to say to bring that home? Because you said it perfectly earlier, but that impact of like embracing, living out F.E.E.L, finding empowerment, embracing layers, you've done that work. You've learned the importance of you. You've realized and made the shifts of how you can show up so much healthier in your relationships and the kind of people that attracts when you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been someone people come to for support, mm-hmm. but it's invited a deeper layer of confidence in me to share. And also a little, I'm listening to understand much more deeply than I did, and just the way I ask questions and create a safe place for whatever might unfold. And then just again, getting back to responding versus reacting. When I see someone acting out of defensiveness or judgment, that's not them. That's their nervous system. And looking at, okay, what's beneath that? What's the pain they're feeling right now that's creating that? And it allows me to be more patient, more kind, more open, and maybe asking more questions or just giving space and choosing what I feel like is a better response. So it's just that, when we see our vulnerabilities, it's so easy to see it in other people, and and especially people who are in close to you. You know why that's showing up, and it's giving that space, that love for that person, for what they're feeling beneath that. It's there's a saying there's a person walked by a dog and it was growling, and they thought, oh, that's such a mean dog. And then they found that the dog actually had its leg in a trap. And that's why he was responding that way. And that kind of, it's like it's a metaphor. We don't know why that person, but there's something, you're not going to project outward what isn't inward, and you're not going to find outward what isn't inward. Yeah. And I think this relationship with myself has really enabled me to see that, in people. Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. I love that outward inward, because that is such an important thing to remember. So good. Thank you so much for that. All right. We're down to the rapid fire. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Oh, just narrowed to 5. No, being in nature in any way, movement, being in community, and laughter, and connection with community. I love learning. I'm a total nerd. I love reading all kinds of books and taking classes. And then I think meditation and breath work too. So that's maybe more than 5, but those are big ones.
Yeah. Oh, good. All right. Yeah. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Vital, like vitality, grounded, healthy, growing, and ease.
Oh, that's good. All right, Heidi, tell people where they can find you and follow you. This will all be on our website at embracinglayers.com. But in case people want to jot this down right now, let them know where they can find you.
They can find me on unshakableme.com, and that's all one word. I'm also on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and at Unshakable Me, and Evolve with Unshakable Me is the Facebook page that I have too. So yeah. And I've got all kinds of ways to reach me on my website as well.
Okay. Sounds good. All that will be there. Thank you so much for this time today. I've so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for how you show up in the world. Life is hard, and growing up is hard, and family dynamics can be difficult, and family histories can be hard. But there's choices to be made within that of how we want our life to look, and the shifts that we want to make, and the generational shifts we want to make. And you have done that. And you've not only done that for yourself, you're now a resource to other people. So thank you for your courage in doing the work to show up this way. This is powerful. It's important. We need this in the world. It's such a pivotal moment in time. If we're going to move forward and make the shifts and create the spaces and places of safety and love and accountability that we want to see. And what you're doing is such an important part of that. Embracing Layers audience, F.E.E.L Podcast audience, be really kind to yourselves this week. Get curious. Realize you've got more in you than you may know. And so how you're showing up in the world feels off, if you're tired, if you're weary, take a pause. Get curious about that. Start taking stock in your life and see where things maybe need to be reevaluated and shifted, because you are worth the journey and you are worth the time. We've got great resources here. We want to support you in this. Heidi, is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Yeah, I think just giving yourself compassion every day and really, and kindness. That's what builds you up. And Melissa, it's been such a fun pleasure chatting with you and hearing your insights and the work that you're doing, which is helping our world. So thank you.
You bet. Right back at you. Listeners, that's all we have for you today, but that's a lot. Go back, listen, take notes, access these resources. You're worth it. Invest in you. Make you a priority. The world needs you. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time here on the F.E.E.L Podcast. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today on this episode of the F.E.E.L Podcast. If you would like more information on how you can apply these talking points that I share with our guests in each episode to your own life, really utilize this F.E.E.L framework, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out our contact form, and let's set up a free 30-minute consultation to talk about how you can start living your most authentic, organic, healthy, F.E.E.L fueled life. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll be back to you soon with another episode here on the F.E.E.L Podcast.